I'm gonna tell you the story, but the first thing you gotta understand is time does not work the way you think it does. You can call me Oracle, or Zakuna, because I'm the one who's talking to you, or singing to you, as the case may be. Welcome to the cult. A cult is a organization of people devoted towards spiritual revelation, where it comes in sequential steps. Problem with this is a lot of times, if the leadership of the cult is in fact shady, cult membership is open to abuse. This is why I'm laughingly calling this a cult, because it requires you to watch YouTube videos. Seems like the safest cult ever, in my opinion. But like, you actually gotta watch them, and like, you gotta watch them with the right intent, because otherwise, well, you'll do bad stuff. And I wouldn't appreciate that. I'd be very mad at this. And if you do stuff that I teach you to do bad things, I'm pretty sure eventually I'll find out, because a lot of the stuff I do, I feel like it's at least a little bit unique to me. And like, I put it out there for people to not do bad stuff with. Like, oh, the mala. So, I'm going to talk about the autumn mala. Atta, the Tower of the Pariah. Atta, Tower of Armageddon. If you remember from the previous episode, let's do the next episode, but we're not going to do that yet. So, we started out with the Merca and his split cap, because he'd been banished, in order to be sent on the Magahiti pathway errand. You'd think by now I'd actually just remember it. Uh-oh. Maybe I should actually start doing those recall things before I do this. That'd be funny. It'd be funnier if like I use these things more than I actually do. Like, I come up with them and then I like use them a couple times and then I just like move on. But where are you? Name of it, the Balarama, Balarana. The fool's journey to get killed. The fool's journey for dying. He met Mago, sat forest expeditions, 3 one at a time, and then 3 at once. He met Striguru, or High Priestess, behind her veil. He saw her, the Empress, at her Kabakara, Papitra, Raya, or her shield, of the Holy Heart. After he met the Maharaji, he met the Maharaja, who took him to the Madaguru Basra Kushkika, the crossroads of the Keys, who told him the Sangita Sagala Kazaza, the fox, and the rabbit that had to go through Parantanam, reincarnation, to find Satyakama, or true love. He was taken by a Ratha, or a charioteer, to a nearby city, and was shown by Ekri Barbaro, who was the viceroy of that city, how to get, who, after taming a lion, a tiger, and a bear, oh my, showed the Marka to the Asrama Hermitage, where he started to study meditation on reincarnation with the hermit there, where he was granted a vision of Dula Nayaya, an angel of justice, after which he got hammered with the Merca, and the hermit got hammered, and he had dreams where he had visions of sacrifice, including the hanged man as Odin and Jesus of Nazareth on the cross. When he woke up, he was given kapha with cream and hemlock. If you watched, if Val Kilmer ever watches this, man, I loved. Real genius. Where he had a vision of a Kaladula, and promptly forgot exactly what the hermit told him about not immediately falling in love with the Kaladula. And then after that, he saw visions of angels of the basically the four horsemen coming out, followed by um, himself as Death's son underneath the altar, where he saw Heaven's Gate open, and he met the Sangita Patman, the devil of the songs. Essentially, the moral of that story is, the moral of the devil of the songs essentially is, the root of all evil isn't even money. It's the love of money over everyone else. Boom, boom. Which brings us to Atta. Atamala. Atamala. And I shall read as the books they say as they say of the plastic of the Grantha or the treatise of the tarot and what they say of these. So, the Tower, misery, distress, ruin, indigence, adversity, calamity, disgrace, deception. Reversed, according to one account, the same to a lesser degree, also oppression, imprisonment, tyranny. Boom, 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 and the beat of drums of Yauda be all of the old times Yauda seen. Tower, flash of truth, rude awakening, shock, followed by disruption. Rude Jagarati. Followed by disruption, upheaval. Long-standing beliefs are shattered, lies and deception are exposed, the con is over, false pride is knocked down, arrogance is put in its rightful place. The tower is literally supposed to be the Tower of Babylon, like the Tower of Babel. Not by humans trying to outdo God, but one human. One specifically being, I will be greater than not just my God, but every other God. Atta Devata Bada. You can look up Devata Bada. I'm not going to say what it is, because the fact that the word exists makes me angry. But I'm going to move on. Reverse meaning. Gaining insight after falsehoods have been exposed or destroyed. Feeling unmoored and adrift without the old beliefs, assessing the situation, seeing the need to rebuild, reevaluating old beliefs, determining new paths, prevailing after a collapse. This is for someone who has become too prideful and suffered a setback. And in many ways, this, my interpretation of the tower as basically America right at, like, because I basically did this in particular during the height of Trump, before January 6th happened, and this little match here is DC. So that's essentially what happened to Trump, in my opinion. Like, that match went off, and then his life started burning like that flag there. Which, karma, good, bad, and different, it always catches up with everyone. I'm just saying. And like, if you support Trump, good for you. I'm not gonna knock you for it because like that is your bhakti. You have faith in him. I'm not gonna try to like mess with your bhakti because that's not acceptable to me. In my opinion, messing with someone else's bhakti isn't acceptable. Like even if I feel like it's misplaced, which I do, but like I'm not gonna go beyond saying that I feel it's misplaced because that's messing with it, in my opinion. All right, so all right, I already did this one. And let me say, what else? All right. Dara, a series of insight propels you to a new awareness. You have outgrown the old structure, physical and mental. You built, you must destroy the structure and allow it to crumble in order to make room for the new structure, the structures you need. You have to sacrifice certain things in order to grow. You may find yourself changing quite a bit. Search your heart for answers. We often have to give up before we can gain. All right, so the Atta Devadabada, Aramara, Ara Malasneho, Ara Zapathabaga, Tower of Oathbreak. That place has a lot of names. None of them are good. But most of you would know the Tower of Babel. But essentially, by the way of this particular Sangita, the Malika Yada, the primordial war, the first war, so to speak, the war where like angels and demons essentially got involved, was essentially because of one human who refused to listen to the word no, unless they wanted to say it. And that's like, that's it. That's it right there. So, but essentially, because there was one exceptionally selfish human, one incredibly stupidly selfish Jivatman. Jivatman is human soul, by the way. As opposed to Paratman, which is higher soul, and Idaveta, which is a link between higher soul and human soul, essentially. So, because of that one a-hole, there was this massive war where we had the Duladina, the angels of the day, the dawn, the noonday Zenith, the Zerabindo, the twilight, the Balaka, or the dreams of twilight, the night, the Rakti, and the eclipse, the Graha, against essentially the Dula Rakti of the dusk, the Ratri, the midnight, the Mahanis, the daybreak, the Usar, the day, the Satyadina Tara, or the day star, and the moon shadow, the Samadat Chaya. You have the angels of Nara, the dawn, the Us, the breath, or the breath firmament, Dula Prananaka, the Dula Prakrti, the angels of fundament, the Dula Tara, the angels of stars, the angels of the deep, the Dula Adaha, the Dula Pazu, the angels of the beasts, and the Kaladula, the death angels, versus the Dula Naraka, or the angels of hell, the devil, the Patman, the scourge, the horror scourge, essentially, the Mhumskala Vitudati, the Gaia Vadhyazila. A Vadhyazila is a stone that was essentially an execution stone. So it's effectively the fallen angels of the Prakrti, the fallen angels of the fundament. The fiends, the Dasa, the Filer, Mulakleza, beast, Purusapazu. Parusapazu is a word for beast that specifically refers to a man as an animal, which is essentially a man who has chosen to abandon being Jana, or human, to be a beast that just essentially looks like a man, which is a Parusapazu, and slaves, the Mur. essentially the angels of death that take people to hell. Um, then you have the Soleil, um, Bidihari, or the light aspected Fae, with their king, the king of the fairies, the Vidyad Harara Kakravatin, with the seed or the fairy looking, uh, Agayasti, um, the wind aspected birds, which are primarily Garuda, the uh, earth aspected dwarfs or the Hramsa, the ice giants, the Hima Vizala, the the Hima Vizala are actually on the Sele, believe it or not. Um, the uh, the Sun Princes, the Surya Kamara, the Rakshasa Knights, the Rakshasa Daman, and the Star Ogres, the Tarapizaka. Then over on the basically the hell side, there's the that would be the on the Unsele side. You would have them led by their prince, Vidyadharendra, with topping them off would be the Bane Seed, the Ati Kalavid, the Zephyr, the which are the wind aspect, the Mandanila. It's all birds, but like primarily like it's primarily like birds of prey as opposed to birds that are preyed upon. Like Capoda would be with Garuda. Like Garuda is like the more militant aspect, I suppose you could say, because they were the Garuda would be the ones that like the Deva would like. Garuda was one of the mounts of Vishnu. I think Garuda was the mount of Vishnu, if I remember correctly. Anyway, um, with the Earth aspect, there's the Goblin, the Bikura, fire aspect is the Will-O-Wisp Pizaka, which balances out on the ice aspect of the ice giants, which is, I guess, why that works that way. Um, balancing out the Surya Kumara or the Sun Princesses, or the Sun Princes, are the essentially the Rasulka, which are Kumari Jala Preta, which are water maidens, but but hungry ghosts. And there's the Puka, essentially, the Yakshapura Sapazu, who are Yaksha, essentially like they're like animal aspect Fae. That's essentially what Yaksha are. But Puru Sapazu, they're like they're human, except they're animals because they're Fae. Because they're Fae. Like they're not actually human. Like they're Fae. Come on, a Puka isn't actually a human. Like not really. But like if you're like you got a lot of Puka in you, you're a human. You're born a human. You just have a lot of Puka in you. And then there's Slua, which are, the here's the thing about the Tarapazaka, the Star Ogres. They're essentially like Kaladula for the light side Fae, as near as I can figure. And the Kaladula for the dark side Fae are the Slua, the Mertuka Kara. And then we have the human. So we had back in at the end of Temperance, there was a good bit where the 32 statues basically went off and became 32 kakra, 32 wheels with 32 spokes. So essentially, each of the 32 statues goes off and they form their own cycle of Punarjanam. They make their own Punarjanam kakra. And like that, it has 32 spokes where each of them becomes each of the 31 other statues in their own Punarjanam journey, in their own Punarjanam marga. And like essentially like taken from a galactic view of time and a galactic view of Kala, that's essentially like accounting for humanity having the chance to incarnate as like people with essentially the same consciousness, like back in time, in the future, and covers basically all potential permutations of consciousness that is like somewhat close to human, as near as I can figure. And then we have when they came around to actually having to fight this war because the Malu was very rude and essentially messed around with a time gate, which is part of why the Merca got so traumatized and it kind of messed up all of us. But like, at least by this theory, we have they have come around to each becoming did I do this list? Oh no. So I had them started out with the Kandala Pariah, the Savika Servant, the Cora the Thief, Barbarian, Barbaro, Pumskali, the prostitute, the Parizrama, the laborer, the Zilpin Krasmin, and the Maharyabaka Brataka, the laborer who works for himself and his master as one, the freeman who is, that's after was his. And then they become as heroes they be. Barbarian as Rama with the axe, Barbaro, coming from the east with the Zakivayu of the white wind. Barbarian Rama with the axe, Barbaro, Parazrama of the Urtarus of the righteous rage. The sacred prostitute of Pavritra Prumskala, who is of the virtue of Kama, and the death clown Merka, who is of the humorous virtue of the Nosa, and the nether spirit knower of the Hamya Manavid, who is of the virtue of service or seva. The divine twins, thief and detective, Zrovtya, Yamala, Kora, Kakora, of the virtue of Kutahala, curiosity, the celestial archer, Divya Vidzulin, whose virtue of vision is Dursty, the illusion Miss Dragon, Graha Malaparva Mayaketu, whose virtue of clarity is Vayakia, and the Lancer of Destiny, Divya Vidzulin, also known by his virtue of dedication, Pratisza. And then there on the south wind came by Raktavayu of the red wind, the artificer of the gods, blacksmith, Sarukaru Lohakara, whose virtue of invention, Kurprati, worked well with the sun's son, Adyatsuna, and his virtue of light, Geotis, which is also intelligence. There was the death cheater, Murtu Vajkana, whose virtue of ego was Va. The herb-nourishing witch, the Zakambari Kirti, whose form of love, of virtue, was more of the mother of Snehu. Then there was the Nightfire, Giota Yamaka, whose virtue was the passion stem, Raga Varuta. There was the shadow phoenix, Chayaman Agni Mayuri, whose virtue was empathy, Karuna. Obviously, like, if that was me, actually me, like, that would have been, like, in a way past life. Like, because that's, like, first stage stuff. Anyway, I'm just saying. There is the expression stitcher, or the Pravakana Siva, whose virtue is wisdom, transcendental as such, or Praja. The weave dragon was last on the south of Graha Tantra Purva, Sutraketu, whose virtue was excellence, transcendental as the Prakrstatva. Then from the west, the Nila Vayu of the blue wind, the all-executioner Kalapara Durara, whose virtue, conviction, was Siti. There was the rule of the poison worm Visakarmi Nyaya, whose virtue was judgment, Viveka. There was the shade friend Chaya Mitra, whose virtue was loving kindness, Maitri. There was the Night King, Rakti Raja, whose virtue was exaltation, Unmada. There was the Lord of Illusions, the Mayapati, whose virtue was wonder, Vismaya. There was the shadow song weaver, Uti Chaya Sangita, whose virtue was good memory, Dharana. There was the artificial peacock, Yantra Mudraka, whose virtue was perfect memory, Siddhi 30. There was the Nether, healer, Yama Sadhana Visage, whose virtue was transcendental virtue itself, Paramita. From the north was the black wind, and there came first the shepherd of ultimate humility, Vararama Antima Vinaya. Then came 3, the fighter of ultimate courage, the mage of ultimate honesty, and the bard of ultimate compassion. And then they came 3, Yara Antima Dirti, Ka Mago Antima Zukita, Ka Kavi Antima Daya. Then came 3, Druid of ultimate justice, Tinker of ultimate sacrifice, and Paladin, or Knight, of ultimate honor. Prayadatavid Antimanyaya, Kamsakara Antimatayaga, Daman Antima Yazas. And lastly, their guide, the ranger of ultimate spirituality, Nayaka Antima Asarya. And the 32, which had splintered off, once again together came for one off. One for Malika Yoda, to make Pralaya Babylon fall, and so as it were, and so as they say, to be a Devadasa of heaven's slave, to be Narakavaga of hell chapter, and be of the path between the golden of the earth, of the Priyadata and the ways in between, of Siddha Vidya, of doctrine related to perfected beings, as they had started as they were before, become something new, evolved as it were, and then we be as though we see Yauda Pralaya Atta Asatya Vajra Patala, Tower of the False Crossroads, Atamalapatati Pralaya, Tower of Original Sin, Fall to Armageddon. And that's all I say, since I have been close to a half an hour this chapter in. This is Oracle Zakuna Sangita, Savan Sangita. Hope I haven't bored you with this Sangita singer, Gayati, as I be. Zakuna Gayati Sangita for ye. Have a good evening. Till then, have a good one, all on the back end. Pazaka, jogging for the demon on the stage, I love ya.